White supremacy relies on having an uneducated population, and that is exactly what Trump's administration in the White House is creating today.
So lovely. Imagine when a system has actually been created to keep you poor, to keep your generation poor, to keep everything that has to do with your growth stagnant, but you still look for a way to succeed. That is just the case of this stage I'm about to put up together. I'm just going to roll it. Please leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video, and let's dive into it.
Okay, let's talk frankly about this for a second. Because whenever we talk about intersectionality, especially when it comes to marginalizations, people always want to say, well, women are marginalized too. And we live in a patriarchy. Woman is not the same power as man. We know that that's how our patriarchy works. But when we are discussing marginalizations, when we are talking about intersectionality, you cannot say that white female is in the same group as other marginalized groups. And that is because there is not a group alive that upholds the structure of their own oppression the same way that white women do. No one rides harder for the patriarchy than a submissive, traditionally indoctrinated white woman. No one has done more harm to Black and brown women for the sake of upholding white supremacy than white women. White women regularly uphold the systems of oppression that keep them in a marginalized position. As opposed to fighting for their own power, they cling to the power of the white men that they serve. So yes, being a woman in a patriarchy is a marginalized identity, but there's a huge amount of white women who live in the gilded cage of white supremacist patriarchy and would rather live there than fight for the rest of us. Okay, let's talk frankly about this for a second. Because whenever we talk about intersectionality, especially when it comes to marginalizations, people always want to say, well, women are marginalized too. And we live in a patriarchy. Woman is not the same power as man. We know that that's how our patriarchy works. But when we are discussing marginalizations, when we are talking about intersectionality, you cannot say that white female is in the same group as other marginalized groups. And that is because there is not a group alive that upholds the structure of their own oppression the same way that white women do. No one rides harder for the patriarchy than a submissive, traditionally indoctrinated white woman. No one has done more harm to Black and brown women for the sake of upholding white supremacy than white women. White women regularly uphold the systems of oppression that keep them in a marginalized position. As opposed to fighting for their own power, they cling to the power of the white men that they serve. So yes, being a woman in a patriarchy is a marginalized identity, but there's a huge amount of white women who live in the gilded cage of white supremacist patriarchy and would rather live there than fight for the rest of us. Okay, let's talk frankly about this for a second. Because whenever
I know we live in a racist country. I know this. I've lived on this earth for half a century, and I know we live in a racist country. But white folks literally hate to see Black joy. It's amazing how we could be minding our own fucking business and y'all mad. Y'all mad. Nobody's being hurt. No one is dying. Everyone's laughing and joyful. But as soon as you see that, it's a problem. And I bet it's because you don't think we deserve to be happy. You don't think that we deserve to have any happiness or joy in our lives because you've been trying your best to beat us down for a long time. And we're still here. And you're wondering why we're still here. And how dare we have the audacity to be happy. I'm sitting here watching these videos and listening and reading some of the responses to the graduations where they're dancing, and I think one school, I think it was in Baton Rouge, actually got out and started doing a line dance. The whole entire stadium auditorium was doing the line dance. The shit was amazing to see. I worked in education for 12 years, and as a student services manager, one of the things I was responsible for doing was ensuring that the graduation happened. I was solely responsible for putting on the graduation for approximately 100 students or so every semester. And one of the things that they did not want us to do was that, what some of these videos are showing, which broke my heart, even though now and again, families would applaud louder than they should. But it's just joy. It's happiness. And I worked for a nursing college, and when I tell you those students went through it, hell yeah, I will be screaming. It's like, y'all are so fucking vanilla that anytime there's any color, you get upset, you get afraid, you get anxious because you don't know where it's going. That's what it is. Y'all afraid. Y'all literally are afraid of us. You don't know what that is or how riled up we can get. So you get scared. You're very timid. And then you think it could be towards you in some respect. It's just funny to me. And then y'all have the audacity to come mess with us when we're not even doing anything to anybody away from you. But you invite yourselves in and produce a problem so that you can feel better. How's that working out for you? I love seeing each and every last one of these graduations where they're acting a plum fucking fool. And I say, keep doing it. Make them angry. Make them angry.
Being Black and upper class has in no way been a persecution for me. It has, however, been a front row seat to a kind of white rage that affects everyone, no matter what social, racial category you slot into in society. This rage flies under the radar, it's made invisible, it's been around for a long time, it runs on the same economic, political playbook that it has since the end of the Civil War, and it's hurting all of you. All of you. Unless you're Jeff Bezos, but that's not you. A very small example of this is a couple of years back, I was all dressed up with Black and white cousins. We're all dressed up. There's a good group of us, maybe 12, and we're going to the symphony. This symphony is it's manned by tons of volunteers, right? People who want to help you, people who are excited to see young people come to the symphony. And we get there and I've got my 8 or 9 tickets all connected. And this older white woman, member of my community, is doing the scanning. I can tell from the get-go, she doesn't really want to help me. She's peeved. And I'm thinking, why? I've got this huge group of people coming in. Like, this is a win for the local community symphony. So she scans all my tickets, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. She gets to the 8th or 9th one. I don't remember how many exactly we had. It doesn't beep. Now, mind you, I had to pick up these tickets at will call with an ID, with my name. And she knows this because she's a volunteer before I come to her. She scans the last ticket that has the symphony's name on it. I mean, it's got all the official stuff. And she explodes with this quiet anger and this total frustration. Like, she's just like, she knew it. She knew I was a thief. And she loudly, in front of everybody, accuses me, basically, of stealing a ticket and attaching it to the legitimate tickets, which is how you should do crime. Now, that's a ridiculous thing. We sorted it out. We found out that, yes, while she was following the rules as to what to do if, I guess, a thief comes and attaches a fake ticket to a bunch of real tickets, she did not know how to use her scanner properly. But instead of having customer service, instead of thinking about how one should approach this, she responded with the anger that was already inside of her. She'd already assumed and knew that this kind of place was not for people like us. And she didn't want to have to let us in. And if she could get us out on a technicality, on a quiet rule, and she threw up her hands, I can't help you, I can't do anything, she would. That is a very tiny, low-stakes example of the work Carol Anderson, as a historian, has done in looking at the documented and demonstrated examples of rulemaking and code making that certain people in higher classes have used to quietly make sure that lower class whites and Black people with wealth cannot get ahead. When Carol Anderson decided to write White Rage, it had come after she'd been asked for the Washington Post to write an op-ed in the wake of August 2014 when the Black Lives Matter riots were exploding. Her critique was that we were looking at Black rage. We were looking at physical anger, destruction of property, all those different things. And she was making it very clear in that first essay and then in her book that you can't understand this rage unless you understand the other kind of rage. That's the rage that uses your political power, your legal power, to write laws and little caveats into things to make sure that you undermine the wealth of people believed to be Black, and you make sure that people who are believed to be white, who are in lower classes, never politically come together with those people. Now, who does that cost? It costs the democracy, and it costs all sorts of other classes that aren't in the ruling class. Because what they're doing is you're undermining, as she shows in her book, you're undermining voting rights. You're undermining this ability for the lower classes to look at each other and go, hey, our taxes should be going toward X, Y, and Z. Carol's research, I should say Miss Anderson's research, is an invitation to look at the kind of responses that have legally always existed to the advancement of Black people or the advancement of lower classes coming together and saying, this is how we would like to be treated. She's making it clear that if we don't look at the playbook, we're going to miss it in today's age. It's not something that happened back then. It's something that's happening now. We're going to be looking at this work because there is going to come a point in time when you are trying to rightfully access something that is yours, and you're going to be told that if it is given to you or if you want it, it's probably because you stole it or you shouldn't have it. As a historian, she's making these brilliant connections about how this is an assault on Black middle class, but then you can go out and see it's also the middle class as a whole. It's really important that we contextually understand our history because we're all bound up together, and all of our lives and our pursuit of happiness and liberty, it's connected. And there are reasons that people don't want you to understand that because you become dangerous when you know that. You're less of a victim and you're more of a threat. So I'm excited to read this book. If you've read this book, if you finished it, if you know of any other things of Carol Anderson's that you just really particularly want to look at, please write in the comments.
Black people need bigger egos. We need bigger egos. This conversation around Black fatigue and this statue of a Black woman in Times Square, which I actually saw a couple of weeks ago and want to share my initial thoughts on, had me feeling like the Black ego needs to be stronger and bigger. And ego in the traditional sense of the word, I feel like white supremacy and maybe even more generally whiteness really seat themselves in the superego and depend on their ability to influence the ego through the superego. And I know that using Freudian terminology comes with some perils, but just walk with me. And again, just working with the terminology, living in America, living in the Western world, no matter what you do, you can't help having your superego heavily informed by white supremacy, right? They set up, if you're not familiar with the concept of the superego, it's the part of yourself that like enforces morals and rules and societal norms and helps to mitigate the whims of the id, which is like your primal desires, and also the ego, which is kind of like your sense of self-importance and self-worth. I often say that whiteness is an idea, white supremacy is a cult, and anyone can attempt to join. And I feel like respectability politics in general are an attempt to replicate the narcissistic traits of the white center, which again can be applied and it can exist in anyone, right? But it's an attempt to replicate those narcissistic traits, and those narcissistic traits are conflated with a healthy ego. The lack of awareness, right? Like existing in whiteness fully is like turning off your empathy and understanding of other people's experiences, complete self-centeredness, right? And this attempt at replication can exist in aesthetics, in aspiration, in social contexts. Replicating white supremacist narcissism, however explicitly or subtly, is not actually a remedy for healing a deeply wounded ego, especially when that ego is being wounded by your own superego. You're at war in your own head. A lot of people feel that narcissism is a cover for deep, deep insecurities. And in this case, in this context of racial hierarchy, I think that applies, right? Really aptly. I'm actually working my way through this book right now called The Selfishness of Others, an essay on the fear of narcissism by Kristen Dumbeck. And while it doesn't look at things through a racial lens, I think it does encourage the reader to start thinking about narcissism as a spectral concept, and moreover, one that has colloquial definitions and clinical definitions. And I think understanding all of those different kind of dials that can be turned up and down is really important when engaging with what I'm saying to you right now, which is that the white superego is out of control in everyone. And in the case of Black people, the Black superego is under assault. And replicating the narcissism of white supremacy is not the same as healing and nurturing the Black ego. I'm not going to extend this video any further, but I'll share my thoughts on the statue in another video.
People don't think they're racist because white people don't understand racism fundamentally. White people think that to be racist, you have to be out hate criming. You have to explicitly be saying you don't like XYZ minority group. You have to be saying you think white people are better. And this level of binary thinking is extremely comfortable for white people because most white people aren't out hate criming. Most racist people aren't out hate criming or explicitly saying they hate minority groups. It's a little bit more subtle for most racist people. Obviously, there are some people who do say that, but that is the exception, not the rule. This goes for both sides of the aisle. Like during the election, people kept saying, not everyone who voted for him is racist, but all the racist people did vote for him. Completely incorrect. Reverse that. Everyone who voted for him is racist. You cannot vote for that without being racist. However, not all racist people voted for him. And that is harmful to say because that perpetuates this narrative of like, or this trope of, I have a black friend, I can't be racist. I voted for Kamala Harris, I can't be racist. I vote for the people who support the minorities. I'm obviously not racist and I don't need to do any further work to prove that. Sophia Coppola is obviously conservative and conservative racism is a little bit more explicit, but they don't think it's wrong and they don't think they're racist because they know that racism is a bad word. That's bad. Racism is wrong. So I'm not racist. I don't hate minority groups. I just don't think that inequality is an issue. I just don't think it's wrong. I just don't think microaggressions exist, right? That's not racist. That's just how they frame their world, and that's comfortable for them. And if there's anything white people cannot give up, it's comfort. Do not make white people uncomfortable. Oh my God. Oh my God. And that goes for the left too. I personally have to work every single day to deconstruct systemic racism within myself, within the people around me, within the world. I exist in the context, right? And I have to be constantly thinking about that because racism is so deeply embedded in our society, in our psyches. But a lot of white people on the left don't feel the need to do that because they're doing their part. They're not voting for racism. So they're not racist. If they don't learn about microaggressions, then they don't have to acknowledge that they exist and they don't have to call themselves or their friends out for doing them, right? If they call people out for saying the M-word, if they go, hey, don't say that, that's doing their part. It would be really uncomfortable for them to have to learn about the way that white supremacy exists in our society. And they don't want to be uncomfortable. Don't make them uncomfortable. Don't fight white supremacy. They're going to hate it. And this isn't an excuse at all, but this binary view of racism isn't helpful and it's not productive to think that like everyone who's racist knows it and says like, I hate minorities. It almost views it in the same lens that they view it. Racism is never okay on any level, but it isn't a binary thing. It's not lacking in nuance. Like there is a lot of nuance. There's no justification, but there are different types of racists. There are different understandings of racism, and to not acknowledge that does us all a disservice.
White supremacy relies on having an uneducated population, and that is exactly what Trump's administration in the White House is creating today. Anti-intellectualism isn't just concerning because individuals don't know how to read or write at a high level. It's concerning because they don't know how to recognize patterns that are happening in society. They don't want you to recognize the historic danger of banning books or realize that in 2023 alone, more than 3,000 books were banned, mostly about sexuality, race, and gender. They don't want you to recognize that erasing history is dangerous, like how Florida changed slavery to involuntary relocation, or that the GI Bill that built the American middle class, including my family, excluded black veterans. Why? Because if you understood the way that racism is built into the foundation of this country, you would demand change. You would have to if you have any sort of conscience. From education to housing to policing, go back 30, 50, 70, 90 years and the pattern is all there. White supremacy needs you to be uneducated and complacent in your current status. So what is the most radical thing that you can do today, especially as a white person? Get educated, read a book, stop dismissing critical race theory as woke propaganda and actually look at the foundation of what we are saying and you will literally be shocked. Let's talk about who the American dream was never meant for. From the start, the American dream was a myth. In the 1930s, the US government literally drew lines around primarily black neighborhoods in order to deny them loans, a process today known as redlining. Not only was this harmful because it kept black Americans out of homes, but it also denied them access to generational wealth. Meanwhile, throughout the 20th century, black workers and immigrants were exploited in factories, in mines, and in fields, while the rich got even richer. Not to mention union busting and wage theft kept families in poverty for decades, and we can even see those effects today. It's not that the American dream is broken, it's that it is a myth for the majority of people. It was meant for white middle class people who had the resources to try to elevate themselves to the top 1%. So by supporting billionaires like Elon Musk or like Mark Zuckerberg, you are supporting a system that actively hurts minorities as well as the everyday people just like you. It's time for us to rebuild a system that is truly fair and equitable for everybody. Peace and love.
Like seriously, lovely. There has actually been some ups and downs, some running around, all because people that looks like me are beginning to focus more on their own community, building their own wealth, and thereabouts. Imagine when a system has actually been built to keep you on a certain position. Imagine a system that you and your ancestors built, but all of a sudden, this said system is just doing everything in their power to keep you on a particular length without allowing you to maybe get to a higher length of your life. But meanwhile, every other person, so many people out there claim that, oh, okay, the problem is from you, the problem is from black people, the problem is that this is the like I have had so many stitches where some group of color people were like, okay, you often talk about how black people have privilege, how white people have privilege. Sorry about that. How white people have privilege, but meanwhile, I am poor. And I was like, just like the guy at stage, if you as a pan-colored person with the way at which the system has been made to protect you, to grow you, to give you a financial stability, and you are still poor, I don't think the problem is on the system. The problem is you. So many people chose not to believe that the system has actually been designed to keep specific people on a same direction, like they don't want you to grow. They don't want black people to grow. But all of a sudden, black people are paving ways. They are growing. They are making things like they are growing. And you think that some racist people will not get angry? Like, you think that racist people will not be boiling? Because they know deep inside of them, even if when they want to deny the fact that the system is making them or have already been placed for them to have so many or generational wealth without doing the same thing to people who actually built the said system to stand on a state that it is right now. And after all said and done, these same people are still progressing. They are still leading. And when you do, they become so angry. They become so, oh my God, how dare you succeed? How dare you be on the same class that I am? I saw some stage where a black woman was complaining that she flew a first class. And there were some group of colored women who were just looking at her like, how dare you fly on the same class that I am? They don't want you to have such luxury because they believe that the system has actually made it possible for you to remain stagnant, for you to remain on a certain position. So therefore, anytime they see that a black person is progressing, a black person maybe flew or live in a very comfortable neighborhood, you see their races, you see them boiling, you see them, oh my God, how dare you? There are some couple of stitches that I put up here. There's some group of college students, black college, I think she's a HBC college student, and they were all rejoicing. They were all happy that they graduated, dancing, showcasing their God-given culture and tradition. And some group of pan-colored people were so angry, calling them ghetto, all because these people got an education that was deprived that was deprived by the like this is just so hilarious. You are the first people to complain how these people are low key and how this and that, but when these people get what you expect them to get, you become very angry as well. You become jealous. You know, you don't want black people to succeed. No, they are succeeding. they are succeeding. Anyway, lovelies, wanna just leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video. And please, lovelies, if you don't subscribe to this channel, do your girl a huge favor to click on the subscription button. Shout out to these people that stitched their video. I'm gonna leave their handles in the comment section, and I'll see you, lovelies, when I upload the next one.